About 2 years ago, I was driving home from a family reunion pretty late at night, and the drive was about 2 hours. I didn't stay the night because I had to be back for work the following day. Most of the drive was on roads with dense bushes and trees on either side, the real creepy ones you see a lot in movies. Anyway, I had been driving for about 45 minutes and I was starting to get really tired. You know, sometimes you suddenly become really tired out of nowhere. Well, yeah, that happened to me. I knew I wasn't going to last, but I didn't come across any place that I felt I could park and sleep safely. Anyway, after it became clear to me that I wasn't going to find a place to pull up, and my tiredness wasn't going away, I did something very questionable. I pulled over to the side of the road onto the grass behind some bushes, trying to hide my car from anyone else who was going to come past. The roads weren't empty. I came across another car every few minutes or so. I made a mental note that the time was 11:22 and then fell asleep. Sometime later, I was awoken by a scratching sound. I looked at the clock. 11:50. The sound stopped after a few seconds, and because I was still extremely tired, I didn't bother looking around and simply went back to sleep. I was later awoken by the same sound, and it was now 12:40. This time it really freaked me out because the sound didn't stop. The thought ran across my mind that it was just an animal inspecting the car, but why would it return almost an hour after it had left the previous time? I looked in my rearview mirror and just managed to catch a glimpse of something running away into the forest. Now, at the time, I thought it was the damn hook killer, you know, the one that scratched up couples' cars and then slaughtered the guy when he went out to investigate. Screw that, I thought to myself. So I got the heck out of there. There was a bend no more than 100 yards up the road, and I came around it. There was another car, parked off to the side of the road with the driver's side door still open. I slowed down just to see if anyone was in there. There wasn't. Then I looked into my rearview mirror. I didn't see anything, and all of a sudden this guy comes sprinting around the corner. He starts screaming at me, shouting stuff like, hey you, get the heck out of your car now. I noped the heck out of there and sped off. I never saw the guy again. Moral of the story? Don't freaking sleep on the side of a deserted road. So, I had awesome parents who let me sleep in the living room on weekend nights when I was very young because my sister was a light sleeper and I could stay up till dawn. But, of course, I always ended up sleeping on the couch because Nick at night made me tired. So, one night, I wake up to the prickly feeling, like an instinct. Just bolted into a sitting position and stared out the front window. We live in rural Georgia, so you can imagine the magnitude of the trees. In perfect light cast from the moon, I see a silhouette of someone in this freaking tree. The family dog dashes to the window and is snarling into the glass. Terrified, I run up to my parents' room and try to explain to my parents that there is a strange person outside. Dad grabs something defensive and darts out with the dogs to beat the wax off the hot head. I tremble in Mama's arms until Dad comes home and says he saw no one and to go to bed. I decide to sleep in my regular bedroom. I fill in my sister and as to what happened. Dad is making regular rounds in the house with a cup of coffee. We're all still and I think I can finally sleep. Nope, I notice the man outside my window. From what I can see in the moonlight, he gives me a shush signal and runs away. Just turns around and runs a straight line away. I swear I couldn't stop crying for what felt like hours. I was 17 and had just gotten my license. Back in high school, my friends and I had made it a mission to find abandoned houses to throw parties in. We had a few good candidates, but the motherlode was this house I would pass on my way home from work. It was an undeveloped shell of a huge home with a large property in the back. I had told one of my friends about it, and one day before we went to see a movie, I took him to the house. It was about dusk in summer, so I had my headlights on. I pulled into the front of the house, and we were there for like 10 seconds tops before we pulled back to go onto the main road. A minute later, this big truck pulls up behind us with its high beams on and riding our butt. My friend and I took note of it, but paid it no mind as we headed back down the main road. At the light, I turned right, but the truck cut through the gas station at the corner and blocked us off. Out of the truck comes this big hulk of a man, and my friend and I are shitting in our pants. He raps on the window, and I roll it down. Now, the real freaky part is that this is a busy road, and now there was no one in sight. He asks us what we were doing at that house, and I quickly lied and said we were making a U turn. He stares at us for a few seconds, smiles, and sends us on our way. To this day, the house remains unfinished, and I'm convinced it's a drug operation of some sort. Too long didn't read. Don't go into abandoned houses, man. When I was about 10, all of my cousins and siblings were over, about 10 of us there. The parents and grandparents were out for an adult dinner, so it was just the kids sitting around watching a few movies when all of a sudden the house shook and there was a large flash coming from the backyard. It felt as if a bomb had dropped. We all heard, felt, and saw it, and as a pack we ran into the hallway. The eldest cousins in the group debated on calling the police, but opted to call the parents. After a few minutes, we gained our courage and ventured out into the living room again, this time with weapons, just in case. After a half hour with no other issues, the parents came home and thought we were insane. There was nothing wrong with the backyard, and no neighbors had reported anything. It's been 10 years, and we still talk about it, trying to figure out what it was. That has been the scariest thing that happened to me by far. Okay, so this happened to me last summer when I was back at my parents' house during the holidays. It was around 3 a.m., and I was in my room on my computer when I got a call from my sister. Now, that was already a bit weird since my sister's room is just down the hallway from mine, and she could have just came in my room. I went to pick up, and the call ended as soon as I reached the phone. I figured that she wanted to speak with me, so I got up and went to her room. As soon as I reached her door, she started screaming that someone was in the room with her, so I busted in, and of course, nobody was there. After she stopped crying, she told me that she woke up and saw a dark shadow just centimeters from her face, and that's why she screamed. So I told her that. She called me. She tells me that her phone is not in her room and that she was sleeping. Sure enough, her phone is actually downstairs in her purse. The weird part is that I have the log of her call on my phone, but she doesn't. I have never managed to explain this one. A week after gaining my CPR certification, I had to try and perform CPR on a woman dying of a heroin, probably other drugs too, overdose. I was at a thrift store with some friends looking for Halloween costumes, and someone came in saying that someone was passed out in the parking lot. I was in the dressing room and it just got super quiet. So I came out and told them I was certified and I'd go take a look and that they needed to call 911. I go outside and I don't see anybody on the ground. Someone comes out and shouts that the person is in the car that's parked far out by itself. I ran over and honestly freaked the freak out. She was pretty much already dead, completely blue in the face, slumped against her car window. She had the red, druggy rings around her eyes, but those were blue too because she was so oxygen deprived. We opened the door, and I'll never forget that when we turned her head to see if she still had a pulse, she had tears running down her face. We pulled her out of the car, put her on the ground, and took her pulse again because the first person to do it wasn't so sure. We started CPR, and the ambulance arrived about a minute after. They got her strapped up and in, and continued CPR. They had another ambulance coming, and those EMTs got out, and there was literally like 6 of them surrounding her. The cop told us that they administered some type of drug that can apparently reverse heroin overdoses if given time, but she was pretty much dead already. They would do the necessary stuff they could until she could get to the hospital and call it, according to him. I also remembered that when we opened the door, there were heroin needles and empty pill bottles all over the floor. She wasn't very old. We also think she had kids. She had some toys in a car seat, plus 2 names tattooed on her. My grandmother swore by this story till her dying day. It was during the war in London. My dad was a baby. She was bombed out of her house and was staying with a friend. The friend had set her up in a room on the top floor. Anyway, she was taking my dad upstairs to bed when a figure materialized on the stairs, telling her to not sleep in that room tonight. She noped back down the stairs and told her friend that she and my dad were sleeping in the sitting room that night. Her friend was annoyed but agreed. That night, a bomb exploded near the house and the roof caved in, right on top of my dad's cot. He would have been killed. I have a very similar story. My grandma was around 7 and lived in Germany during World War II. Her town was getting bombed regularly. One day, her little brother kept crying and begged to stay in the neighbor's house for the night. Her parents were okay with it and they went to stay with the neighbors. That night, a bombing run came through their house, and their house was completely destroyed. It's crazy how close I was to not existing. My mother told me this not too long ago, but it happened about 10 years ago now. When my cousin was 17 or 18 years old, she was in a car crash and had died a couple of weeks later in the hospital. She was really close to my dad's sister, our aunt, and used to babysit her kids, who were no older. and 4 years old at the time. Our aunt's house was under construction just before she passed away, and it continued on after she passed away. One night, my aunt got a phone call as she was at work from one of the construction workers complaining about a teenage girl who kept showing up at a house and walking around, and that she shows up a number of times during the weeks, and this happened for a couple of weeks. My aunt asks for a description of the girl to see if she knows her from around the neighborhood. And sure enough, the description perfectly matches my cousin who died a few weeks before. Long brown hair, red baseball cap, denim dungarees, and a white jacket. When my aunt got home, she showed them a picture of my cousin, and they all agreed that it was the girl they had seen walking around the site. This story really freaked me out when I heard it because our family was never one to believe in anything paranormal or have anything of the paranormal sort happen to him. When I was in high school, I had a really good friend who lived next door to a house that was always up for sale. People would move out in the middle of the night without a word, and it hadn't had the same owner for more than 6 months straight for a couple of years. One night we were really bored, and he suggested we go explore the house next door since it had sat empty for a while. We go around back, and there's a dog door that you can crawl through, and he unlocks the door and lets me in. The house itself is really unremarkable. It looked like it was built in maybe the 1950s and was a craftsman style house in an older, nicer part of town. My friend's house was similarly built. The kitchen had a really nice built in breakfast table set against a picture window. The house's electricity was off, but you could see the street light through the window. My friend and I sit down on the floor across from this table and are just hanging out talking. Why? Who knows? All of a sudden, my friend screams, and in that instant, my vision goes black. But it wasn't that I just couldn't see. My body was engulfed in this sickly coldness from head to toe. I start screaming, and I feel my friend's hand grabbing mine and pulling me in some direction forcefully. My vision slowly comes back, and I start to warm up when I realize that we're outside under the streetlight. It was December and should have been much warmer inside of that house. Finally, I look at my friend, and he looks really scared. I'm really confused and kind of panicked myself, and finally ask him what happened. He says that as I was talking, a black thing, this figure that was all black and only had the vague shape of a girl, cried out from under the table and sat on top of me. Apparently, I started groping around with my eyes wide open like I couldn't see. He was so freaked out he pulled me out of the house. We're still friends and we bring it up every now and then, but the story itself never changes and it still sends chills down my spine. To this day, I've never felt such blackness or coldness in my life. It was palpable, almost sticky. For a couple of days afterwards, I couldn't shake this unsettling feeling, and I could never walk past that house again. Ugh, I'm too scared to get out of bed now. So that was my first, test of a video like this. After looking at the audience trends, I've realized that you guys want more audible horror content, and I'll still be making Minecraft content every so often. But if this video blows up, I will likely be making more content with the Minecraft background of the videos I made in the past, and I will be making more Reddit reading stories of horror content. This post was 12 years ago, and I found a few bangers that I felt were going to fit this book novel thing that I'm making. I don't know, this video. I don't know where I'm going with this, but consider subscribing if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. And if you want more of this, please comment down below what I can do better and what kind of posts you want to see, like paranormal or something like that. I guess I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching my video out of all the other videos you could have watched. And if you made it to the end, please comment fish. I ran into water just then. It was so annoying. Hardcore Badlands Only World video is on my channel.